Kia ora, my name is Jess. I'm from the External Communications team here at the FMA, and you're joining me for another episode of Jess Learns to Invest. Today we're going to be talking all about shares with the wonderful Natalie Ferguson. Nat is quite a powerhouse entrepreneur. She started an investing platform that helped thousands of Kiwis kickstart their financial futures. She is now a co-founder of Powrsuit, which is helping empower women in their careers. Thank you so much, Nat, for joining me today. It's lovely to have you.
Thanks for having me. This is going to be fun.
It's going to be so fun. Before we get into the topic of shares, because I've got quite a few questions to cover, I'm really keen to learn a little bit more about your background and what made you think I'm going to start an investing platform? What made you think that there's sort of a gap in the New Zealand market for that?
We had a little discussion about this before, but I don't feel like money itself is very interesting. Yep. What money can buy is interesting. And so when people say money can't buy you happiness, I totally disagree with that. I think we should swap the word money for freedom, and then it changes the conversation. So I'm a very purpose, values-driven person, always have been, always been a bit stubborn, always been fiercely independent, and always been drawn to a really big problem that has often had like a lot of really, in my opinion, obvious solutions overlooked. So for a long time when it was finance, it was very much relegated to those people who already had money or who had education or who felt comfortable with all the jargon.
Totally relate to that,
They got everything. And the rest of us kind of were left thinking it wasn't for us. And so when we started to think, and as someone who's been investing, even when it was so hard and you had to have like $1,000 and I'd have to break it up with my family into little pockets so I could afford to invest in order to cover the fees. I had done it for so long that I'd seen the benefits of time. Yeah. And so being able to give that access and having a technical background so I could see that we now no longer had the barriers we used to have that had left New Zealanders without access to financial tools. We could now launch something that allowed us all to take control of our money, build that wealth to generate that freedom and live lives how we wanted to live. Same thing with Powrsuit. It's all about how all of us can build the lives that we want to lead and remove some of those sort of artificial barriers or old barriers that no longer exist for us, but we didn't get told they no longer exist.
Oh, I love that because I've said it in like every episode. I'm sure people are sick of hearing it, but like when I was younger, it was just never a thing on my radar, investing.
No.
It's honestly now, like later 20s, I'm like, oh, this is something I should have been doing.
Absolutely.
So when did you start investing? Like how did you even learn about it?
It's so funny to try and remember, but I was very lucky, and I think this is the hit and miss element of investing. I grew up with parents who invested in property. I didn't grow up with wealthy parents. My dad was in the military. My mum, as a result, couldn't really have a career because we moved around so much. But as a result, potentially of moving around, they did buy and sell houses along the way. They didn't have a big empire. They just maybe bought a house and then upcycled their house
sort of
to another house.
And just started property investing.
So they only ever had like one at a time. And then, so it wasn't like a big thing, but it was something that I realised was doable. And secondly, I think my mum's a bit of an entrepreneur in a different generation. So she was always figuring out ways that we could start little businesses or do different things on the side. So I grew up with the one factor that I think most of us had to have to be an investor, which was a family or role models that did it. That's it. That was it. Then I started my own businesses very young. And the first big investment I made, and I remember this, was Xero was IPOing. And this is not financial advice, against all financial advice. I'm not even sure if I knew these rules existed then, said to my parents, we need to invest in this IPO.
I love that.
So I think it was a $10,000 minimum. So I think my sister had a bucket, I had a bucket, and we bought a family package for like $10,000.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
It was something like that. It was unaffordable for me to have bought the whole lot at the time. And of course, Xero went on to do amazing things and take over the world. And so I sort of got the bug then, but like I say, look at all the barriers. It had to be $10,000. I didn't know how to use an investing account. Like I don't even know if there really was one. We had to ring someone. It was all paper-based. It felt very scary. Your money went into the ether and then like it must have been recorded somewhere. It just was not fun. It
'Cause
wasn't.
In my mind, I just picture men in suits, and you have to rock up somewhere with tons of numbers.
Yeah, who don't make you feel comfortable. Who know, they know all the knowledge. You don't know any of the knowledge, so you're sort of on the back foot. So that was my first investment. And then I remember at the time I went, so I've got my money in a bank account, and this bank account pays me like 4% interest or something. And I saw the dividend fund and shares, and I was like, the average dividends in this is 5%. So what if I use this as like my long-term savings? And I just got curious and started putting, that was probably what set up my philosophy, is starting to put like $50 a week, like something like that in this fund, and then expand it out to other things. So that set me up with this idea that investing, unlike zero, isn't a big one-off do it. It's more of a regular habit as an alternative to saving money. And if you're thinking long-term, you do have that ability to try something a bit different.
Yeah, awesome. And so today we're going to talk all about shares. And I feel like this is an episode, I've had friends that are like getting into the series and they're like, you haven't done shares yet. And I'm like, we're getting there. It seems to be quite popular, hey, like at the moment in terms of compared to other investment types. So could you tell me, what is shares? Like a basic level definition. What are they?
Well, firstly, we use stocks, we use shares, we use all sorts of different jargon to explain the same thing. We used to say shopping for shares is the same thing as shopping for shoes. You are buying something. That's all you're doing. And these days you can buy it online in the same way you'd browse through ASOS or something and pick your pair of shoes. You can use an online platform and pick a share to buy. And what a share is, it's actually in the name. It is a share or a slice of a company. So what you're buying when you invest in shares is ownership of a company, which I think is probably why it's kind of exciting for people. I love one of the couple of analogies we used early on at my last startup. At the time, different now, Tesla. Everyone loved Tesla. It was just like this really cool company that was going to change the world. Everyone was walking around with iPhones and MacBooks and wearing Nikes and eating McDonald's. And the idea that you would invest that money in spending to eat the burger, why not invest it to own a bit of the company and benefit from these things that you really like?
When you put it like that.
Yeah, so that's all investing is in shares, is buying a share of a company and becoming an owner. It's pretty cool.
It is pretty cool. I can see why it's sort of hyped up over, say, bonds, managed funds, all the other ones that are sort of out there.
Yeah.
I think you touched on it a little bit, but I'm keen to know how you do it. So I know you said you can go online. I'm sure there's lots of different ways you can buy a slice of a company. But if you're a beginner, you've never done it before, you don't even know what to search, how would you go about buying a slice of a company?
Can I go back a couple of steps there? Because I think there's a couple of things you can do, and it's different for different people. I'm a learn by doer. Other people like to do their research first. So there's a whole bunch of platforms out there now. There's podcasts, there's like this, there's books, there's blogs, there's all sorts of stuff that you could learn the basics, and they really de-jargon it and really give you a little bit of comfort. The reason I say that is because these days, your first investment actually doesn't have to be massive. Unlike my $10,000 of zero shares, you can invest as little as $1. Like, it's really not a big deal. So sometimes, because it's a concept that's foreign to us, we tend to think, this is big and risky and I might lose all my money and I have to be really careful and do hours or weeks of research to make the right call. I like to think of it, have a little read around or a listen to get some fundamentals if you want to. Or the other way you can do it, and what I've always encouraged, is what is an amount of money that you can afford to lose because you'd spend it on dinner or drinks out? Is it $50? Is it $100 that you might go out one night and you're going to blow all that money on a couple of cocktails and some chicken tenders? Like, you're going to spend that money anyway. So you've lost it. So, like, take that as your budget and go, this is all I'm going to do. And I think it should be more than $1 because you want to feel that really tangible sense of this could have been spent on cocktails or whatever. So I'm going to feel sad if I lose it, but it's not actually big money. And then I would start by going, what's the thing that I already know? So I listed a bunch of companies there. We buy stuff all the time. So pick something and then sign up to a platform. And there's multiple platforms, and I'm not going to list them all. I'm sure you've listed a bunch of them. You sign up. You have to do some security checks, like get your face and your name and your address and all that sort of thing. Most of them are pretty seamless now because they want you to sign up, but there might be a bit of a hiccup. You deposit your money, and then just like going on ASOS or on Temu or whatever it is, you search for something. And so I would suggest going in with an idea of companies that, like, look at what you're wearing, look at what you drive, look at the tech you use. Pick a company that you kind of go, I love this company. I spend a lot of money with this company. I probably should benefit from a bit of ownership. And just pick that. Don't overcook it. Don't feel like, oh my goodness, because the next big barrier is, there's so many options. Which one do I pick? Just pick something because it's your cocktail money. Doesn't really matter. Yep. And just make that first investment and you'll get a shopping high, which is great because we love a shopping high. And then you can just sit on that. And I recommend sitting on that for a month or so, because what you'll do is, because these tools are all online, you'll see the price go up and down and you'll get used to like, today it's worth this, tomorrow it's worth this. Oh, wow, there was a news article that came out about this company. And then it dropped this. And you'll find this sense of nerves gives way to this sense of obsession with this company. And again, you don't have a lot on the line, but you have just enough to get pretty curious about it.
Yeah, and you don't have to look at your investment every single day.
No, but you probably will to start.
Yeah,
you probably will. Over time, you actually get a bit bored of that, but it's okay to start and get really obsessive about it and kind of realize that any little hiccup or any little cough from Trump or from China or from whatever is going to change that price, and you start to go, I see how this all works.
Yeah. So it's really great to know that you don't have to have lots of money to do it. So you can have $5, $10, and that can kind of come out weekly and kind of make it manageable for you. Is that a good tactic for both long-term and short-term investors with shares?
So I wouldn't consider shares to be a short-term investment.
Oh, interesting.
And there's a reason for that, and it is the ups and downs.
Yes.
So I kind of rage against some of these things we're taught. Like, one of the big one-liners I grew up with is, don't invest money you can't afford to lose. Have you heard that?
Yeah.
So our KiwiSaver is in shares. So we have a lot of money we can't afford to lose in shares. That is a reality. But what we actually should say is, don't invest any money you can't afford to be without for a long time. You never want to be in a position that you need to get that money out of Apple or Tesla or whatever it is, because that could be a point where share prices dropped but you need to pay your electricity bill. You never want to be put in that position, because if money equals freedom, you do not want to be using your money to create more stress in your life. You just don't want to. So anything under 5 to 10 years, if you're going to be using it in the next 5 to 10 years, keep that in term deposits or savings or something that it's pretty stable. And your shares should be longer than that. Things that you can look and go, I'm really backing the long-term nature of this. And those little changes over time, what you notice is they sort of go like this and they go up and up and up. And obviously not all the time, but you do notice those trends with good quality companies.
Yeah, and if you've got it in there for the long term, hopefully those drops aren't going to make you nervous or anxious.
Yes.
Because you don't need it right now.
And it's sort of got that sort of curve up. So the drops actually over time don't always make you lose money. They just make your share price slightly
scary,
less.
Doesn't it?
Yeah.
And I liked that you talked about picking companies that you already spend money with or that you like, because I was going to ask, how do you choose? Because it is really hard. There's so many options. And is it one of those things where you don't want to put all your eggs in one basket? Would you have a couple of shares in companies that do different things? How would you go about that? Because that part seems the most daunting to me.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I reckon you've got two strategies. One is getting up and running, and the other is long term. Getting up and running, you want to be experimenting, you want to be learning, you want to be figuring things out with small amounts of money.
Yes.
So you might have a budget an X% of your salary, or a small amount that you go, this is my education money. And I'm going to, if you're like anyone else I know who started investing, you might pick 10 different companies and you're going to go on a shopping spree like you do if you discover a new great clothing brand or whatever it is. You're going to do that. That's fun for the short term. What you tend to find is that your interest peaks and you check it madly every day, and then over time life gets back in the way. So that leads to your second strategy, which is actually investing should be pretty boring. And investing should be, if you've got $100 a week you put away, $80, $90 of that should be in set and forget investments that are very, very, they say, diversified, spread across a lot of baskets. You got your eggs in all sorts of places. The returns on that, or the amount it goes up and down, should sort of track overall world economies or big economies, so you're not really stressing about it. It's just, you're effectively, that's your money that goes, the world kind of needs to blow up for that to be lost. And then your 5 to 10% or 10 to 15%, depending on how much you like to be involved, that's where you can put it in your companies and go like, oh, I want to pick this thing and I want to pick this thing. And that means that you really don't want to have too many. And you can if you want to, if you're a really engaged person who's like, I want to pick 1,000 different companies to invest in. But most of us tend to just go, oh, there's a couple that I really back. So like, for example, my parents are mad cruisers. They love cruising. And sometimes, not much anymore, different companies have shareholder benefits. And the cruise company they cruise with does. So for Christmas one year, we bought them shares in the company. And if they have a certain amount of shares, they get credits every time they cruise. So that's one company. They don't invest in a lot of individual companies, but for them, that really stacked up and they get excited about it and they get some rewards from it. And cruising has gone through some very odd times in the last few years and they've ridden that wave.
That's so cool. And I was going to ask, can you buy gifts, like shares as a gift? It sounds like you can.
Well, in some cases, I think in some cases you can, but we probably did it unofficially, gave them money, set them up with their own account, and they did it through that account. Again, that is just very much so that there's a lot of protections in place to make sure people aren't laundering money and all of that sort of stuff. But, you know, you can unofficially give someone $300 and say, I put it in as a gift certificate, unofficial gift certificate, go buy yourself some shares.
Yeah. That's actually a really great idea. Whenever I'm stuck for gifts now, I'm going to be like, okay.
Oh, I'm a huge fan of it. And the exception to that is kids' accounts. A lot of these platforms have kids' accounts. And I saw some research the other day that was something like if you gave every baby $1,000 when they were born, they would all have like like 200,000 when they retired, something crazy, because of the compounding nature of these returns. And I just think, what a great gift for a one-year-old who really doesn't care about the wooden spoon or the rattle. No. Put $50 in their investing account. You're giving them such a big gift.
Yeah, that's awesome. And they've got the time, obviously.
They don't care.
And they just get the reward when they're older. It's like, that's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
And for a new investor, how would they figure out if shares is right for them? Does it come back to what we talked about earlier about strategy and like looking at when you need your money before you start doing anything, come up with your why?
Yes, and I think the reason I really like shares for a new investor is because it's actually not a steep learning curve. I think that is a big myth that we need to move on from. And I think it's being contributed to by a bunch of factors. One is the jargon. Like there's so much jargon in investing, and it's all concepts we know.
Put me off.
It's ridiculous. It's like returns, diversification, dividends. All of these things are actually everyday concepts. We all know them and we all deal with them all the time. And so it's just actually a matter of seeing through the jargon and going, oh, this is actually very straightforward. Like there's actually not a lot of crazy stuff here. They've just created all this language around it that really none of us should need to know. So I think the reason why when you start out shares are really useful is they're a shortcut to learning all of that stuff. You learn the squiggly graph line and why it goes up and down. You learn how to buy. You learn the difference of being like buying and selling and the costs of buying and selling. You can start to, like I remember very early on, I used to have some friends around and we would talk about the things we'd invested in, which I highly recommend as well if you're a new investor. Get a group of friends together and just talk about the things that you've invested in. And like we would just go on all sorts of tangents because we'd be like, oh, and then this news story happened. And then I got really interested about the company that it was. And you just start to go, oh, I'm learning all of this stuff. And it makes it so much more interesting than like kind of a boring fund that you should be putting a lot of money into. But like if you've never invested before, like start with something that's going to get you really engaged and excited about learning. You can do that. You're allowed. And if you're starting to invest thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, that's a problem for another day. You can change your strategy then. But like you don't need to start with the strategy you're going to use when you've got real money in there. Yeah.
And would you say you don't have to know everything as well before you start investing?
Please don't wait to know everything.
That's what I was hoping you'd say.
I'm a learn by doer, but also like you'll never learn everything. You will never, and I genuinely say this, you cannot read your way to understanding the feeling of when your share price drops. There is no amount of research you can do to understand that feeling, and there's no amount of research you can do to figure out the tactics you'll utilize. One of the best tactics is instead of hitting sell, which a lot of people do, talk to your friends and go, oh, I've had this panic attack and this thing's happened. And so you can't learn until you actually do. It's the case with most things. You actually have to try it.
Yeah, I'm like that. I'm quite a visual person as well. Like, got to see it, got to see how it works to understand. Yeah. And we talked about terminology and things. Diverse portfolio is something that you just hear all the time. Mm-hmm. What does that mean, and how does shares play into that?
So you've already told us what it means, which is putting your eggs in lots of different baskets. That's all it means.
I'm learning.
Yeah. So let's say, for example, and I'll start with because I did also invest in Tesla, so I'll use it as an example. I invested in one car company. So let's say I have $100. I put my entire $100 in that car company. Mm-hmm. All it takes is for someone in that car company to do something dumb or an issue with the car or whatever, and that company goes bust, and that's it. Like, all my $100 is gone. If I was instead to go, I'm going to put my money in a fund that invests in 10 car companies, or I'm going to buy 10 car companies shares, $10 in each car company. If the first one does something really dumb and goes bust, I've still got 90% of my money sitting there. So I've reduced the risk that I'm taking and not putting all my eggs in one company. From there, I could even go, instead of just cars, why don't I just go a whole economy? And I've now got my $100 spread across 1,000 companies. And so even if 100 of them go bust, I've actually got a huge amount of extra money. So over time, again, maybe not when you start, but over time, you get to decide, I want to put all my eggs in 1 basket, 2 baskets, 10 baskets, 1,000 baskets, 10,000 baskets. And the more baskets, the more likely that any random things happen in one area is not going to impact you. And the more closer you get to the whole world has to melt down before you're going to have to really worry. Again, in the long term, if you panic and sell, then you're going to get yourself in a pickle. Yep. But that's not the share markets, that's your behaviour.
Great. I loved how you put that. It's quite simple and easy to understand when you think of it like that. But there's so many terms, I just feel like risk is one of them. So what are some of the risks with the shares and the good positives and negatives, I guess, is sort of the way I would word it.
Your 2 biggest risks: 1, doing nothing and not investing in shares, and secondly, panicking when you do. Like, those are the risks no one talks about. We talk a lot about the risks of the share price dropping, but it's like, there's so much research to show, like, if you put your money in a bank account and you put all your long-term money in, you are losing money because inflation tends to be higher than your interest rates. That is the biggest risk to you as an individual. But the second one, when I talk about panicking, is I remember the 1980s share market crash. So a lot of people talked about the share markets being really risky because they lost all their money. What actually happened, and this happened in 2008 as well, is the share prices really, really dropped. And of course, in the 1980s, it sounds like there was some cowboys with fake companies and all sorts of stuff. But let's say you're investing in a normal company. In 2008, you'd invested in Apple. Apple's share price was decimated, drops right down to next to nothing. If you do not sell, what happened is over the next 10, 20 years, that share price came right back up and overshot where it was. You haven't lost anything. If you waited till it got right down to rock bottom and went, and sold, you've sold for that amount of money. You can never get any more than that back. So those are the 2 biggest risks, which is why I always say, like, anything less than 5-10 years, you just don't want to be in a position because it can take a while to recover, and that's okay because you just slowly chip away, keep adding money, you're buying shares cheaper because it's lower price. So those are the 2 big ones. The other big one is sort of what we talked about, putting all your eggs in one basket, which is great when you're starting out to learn. But when you've got serious money in there, money is freedom. You don't want to be staying up awake at night going, oh my goodness, is Google going to be taken over by AI because all my money's sitting in Google and my whole livelihood is dependent on it. You just don't want to be in that position.
Yeah. And you talked a little bit there about selling them. So I didn't realise you can actually sell. So say you need the money out. I always thought of it as like you could take your money out, but is it you sell your share that you have, so that slice of that company? Is that how it works?
So we'll go back to the shoe analogy because I think it works really well. Actually, handbags. I'll use handbags because we love handbags at the moment. Everyone's talking a lot about Birkins. So you buy a Birkin.
Labubus on that.
Oh, yes, Labubus. Okay, let's do Labubus. So you buy a Labubu and you spend $5 on it and you own the Labubu.
Okay.
Yeah, and it cost you $5. Then suddenly Labubus become a thing.
Why are they a thing?
For some outrageous reason, which is sometimes the case. Well, I mean, Labubu's probably a company. I'm not sure if it's listed on the share market.
That'd be interesting.
But so that one Labubu is now worth $10,000 because you managed for your $5 and you bought it in a shop to luck out and get the crazy most popular one. When you sell that, you've still just sold the one Labubu. It's just that you spent $5 on it and you sold it for $10,000, and that's it.
Okay.
So it's the same with shares. When you buy one share, you own that one share, and you may have spent $5 on it, and it may be worth $10,000. You still sell that one share and you just get what it's currently worth. It's exactly the same as anything else we buy and sell. In some cases, you might buy a Labubu, you might miss that peak, and suddenly everyone realizes that they're just hideous random dolls, and now it's worth 50 cents.
Yeah.
And you decide to sell it then. You've still sold the same thing, it's just worth less.
Yeah, okay, that really helps me understand it. Yeah, so it can change in price and go up and down.
Yeah. Yeah. Which, just so you know, everything can. Like property, we often don't think it is the same market. It's just that we don't publish the prices of property every 2 seconds.
It's interesting, that we don't actually.
Yeah, but it's exactly the same thing. Everything fluctuates. It's just that shares in particular is published so quickly that we can see it a lot.
Yeah. And do you have any tips for people that panic when they see those numbers dropping? Because especially at the moment, that is the big thing, right? All this market volatility.
Yes, and that's what leads to one of the big risks is we panic sell. Yeah. And that's where people really lose money and then tell everyone that the share markets are risky, which then puts the next generation off. Like, dumb move all around. First thing, you cannot look. Like you don't check your property price every day. You don't have to check your share price every day. You're allowed to not look. You can change your password. You can throw out your, put away your verification codes or whatever it is and just stay away. The second thing you can do is talk to your friends. I genuinely think that's a good idea to go, I'm feeling a bit wobbly. Can you? And we had an investors club at our last startup, and people would come in there on those days and be like, I'm feeling it, I'm feeling the panic. And people would bandy around and go, let's pay attention. The third thing you can do if you're a researcher or if you're interested is check the news. Like, is it a problem with the company itself, or is it just all the different crazy that's happening in the world? Like, we know oil prices, conflicts around the world, geopolitical stuff, interest rates, all impact. So is it the company or is it the markets as a whole? Is it everything? And that can give you a bit of comfort too. So you've got all sorts of tactics you can take, but the worst one is when you're feeling the panic to sell. Like, you can sell at any time, but like if you do some of those things instead, it's very rare that it's a good idea to sell things when they're at a very low price. And actually, in the rest of our lives, we know that. We know that the worst thing we can do when we buy a car is to sell it for the minimum amount you could possibly sell a car for. So, like, we do know that philosophy. It's just the big red line and the big low numbers, they feel scary. And so we behave as humans do irrationally sometimes.
Yeah. Sometimes it's good to sleep on something before actually acting on it.
Yeah, and that's why I also say 2 different strategies. When you're starting, you might feel that feeling and you might sell and you've lost $20 and you've learned something. That's okay. Like, don't beat yourself up about that, because it's the whole point of learning to invest is you're going to make some mistakes. Totally. No one can time it perfectly. No one gets everything right. It's a myth. You're not going to do it.
And you talked about there's lots of different ways you can get shares. Apps are out there, different websites. How do you know that they're safe and you're not going to invest in something and it's a complete scam and lose all your money? Like, there's so much out there. Like,
there are. I mean, coming in a New Zealand context, there are some New Zealand companies, and the great thing about New Zealand companies is that they are regulated in New Zealand. And that is a feature. And I know sometimes in life we like to have a shortcut, and like if I'm signing up to like Instagram or something, I want the smoothest sign up. There is some benefit to you in having some barriers to signing up. Like, it actually does help when companies the companies that take your money have to jump through some hoops to make sure they've got the right things in place, because it is a very technical thing behind the scenes with where your money sits, where the shares, like you own your shares, but you're not like handed, like there's no physical share. So it's like a digital thing that has to be stored somewhere. That shouldn't be stored in the same place as your money. So there's all of that sort of stuff that in New Zealand, the companies are really regulated and they have generally very clear terms and conditions that can tell you that. But you probably don't need to do a crazy amount of research if you're investing through a company that's registered in New Zealand. The other thing I would look for is anything that feels too good to be true, and this is just more good general investing advice, is like if there's a platform that you hear of that is like, I heard of someone recently and it was like, they give you 10% fixed returns and they don't have any information. You have to be invited into the club. And I'm like, as soon as there's like anything like that, alarm bells should just be going so loudly in your head, because investing should be boring and it should be very well regulated and your money should be looked after, and greed is another common thing that can get us in a pickle. You just want to have like a reasonable amount of money that a reasonable company would make for you. So yeah, I'd just say start with that. There's some pretty good brand names out there that we all know. You can do a quick Google or a quick ChatGPT and just make sure you get a few reviews on them. It's pretty easy these days to look up scam name and just check. And I presume FMA will always
We've got
help
all of
you
our
as
scams
well.
on there.
But just don't overcook it. Like, we've got some good platforms. They're pretty household names. You can probably pick one of them to put your $100 in and not worry too much.
In some of these apps and the big household names, I'm guessing it's quite easy to go in and see and track all your investments in there. They make it simple. Because like you say, you haven't got anything physical, so it does feel weird just sending your money into the abyss.
Yes, but you can see how many shares you've got, how much the price has gone up and down, the current price, depending on which shares, like which company. Like if you invest in Apple, it's in American dollars, it's listed on an American share market.
Yes.
Most of that stuff is pretty seamless these days, that your New Zealand dollars get converted for you. And so, but you can see the US dollars, and there's some complications there with like, you have the exchange rate might change as well as the share price. But again, it's just like you learn that over time, and it's not that crazy once you kind of get your head around it. So yeah, you should be able to see all of that information in those apps and be able to kind of get your head around checking it a little bit. Yeah.
And we talked a little bit about if you have favourite companies, that you should choose those as kind of your starter point. What if someone's out there that they just can't decide? Do these apps, I've had a little play in them, you can select like packages, right? And it kind of does it for you. Like there's different ways you can do it.
Yes. Yeah. So most of the investing apps these days, they have shares in individual companies. I don't know if you want to go into funds at all, but like you can buy. Okay, great. Yeah. So you can buy shares in an individual company, or there's companies that create packages for you, and they're often called ETFs. Beautiful jargon.
Yeah, love it.
And if you're investing in them through a share market, they're called ETFs, because a share market or a stock market is also often called a stock exchange or an exchange. All the same thing, multiple different names for the same thing. So ETFs are exchange-traded funds. You buy a fund through a share market. That's all it means. And these funds, and there's so many cool ones. I actually really like these, and I think we should mostly have our money in these funds. They have everything. Like there's one that's a total world. So all the companies that are listed on all the share markets in all the world are bought by this fund.
Wow.
And you can just put your $100 in that, and you own a slice of every company on every share market.
Yeah, right.
So
it
like,
just puts your money out into those companies.
Absolutely, yeah. So they buy all the stuff. They have it all in there, and you just own a slice of that fund of all of those things. So there's stuff like that, and there's a whole bunch of them, and they're pretty good, because when we talk about diversified, eggs in lots of different baskets, they're the boring things that, like, if all the share markets in all the world went bust and all the companies on them went bust, we would have bigger fish to fry than whether or not our stock portfolios were doing well. But then there's also some really niche ones. So like, I think these days, people who are interested in crypto, you can actually, rather than investing in Bitcoin, you can buy into a fund that does all that for you. That might be, so you can do that, or you might be interested in cruising, so you could get a fund that only invests in that, or future technology. And so you can actually shop, and instead of just investing in one company, you might be like, I'm going to invest in this industry because I'm interested in this industry, and then I don't have to pick in individual companies. I just pick something that's like my one years ago, internet dating. You know, when everyone was
Really?
getting apps like Tinder and
Yes,
stuff,
yeah.
there's one company called Match.com that owns a lot of those. So I was like, pretty sure everyone's going to be swiping now.
Yeah.
I'm just going to invest
That's
in this
smart.
fund. It wasn't actually. It went down.
Oh.
I think people have given up. Well, now we
Was
know.
it COVID? Is that why?
I think people are just sort of over internet dating, or maybe they were pretty overvalued at the time. Like we thought it was going to be a bigger industry than it was. But instead of investing in one, I could invest in like a little group of them. And I was like, and that's a great example of me going, oh, I think the future looks like this trend that maybe not everyone sees. I was single at the time. I was like, I'm seeing a lot of single friends swiping. Like I can see this trend that maybe my like 70-year-old mother probably wouldn't notice. And it's the same with people who work in like a hospital. They might go, I'm seeing this trend rising in healthcare, so I can invest in a fund around that. So you can start to pick like, this is where I think the world's going and start to find those things.
Yeah, that's really cool because I know ethical investing is also quite a big thing.
Yeah.
So you can make sure you're not investing in companies that are, doing things that you don't like so much.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can really start to pick what works for you and your strategy.
Absolutely, yeah, which is kind of fun. When you start thinking about it like that, you start to get like, ooh, I get to like invest in the future I want to see. That's effectively what you're doing.
And like your example about the dating sites, when that started to not turn out how you thought it would, what did you do? Did you sell it or?
No. So I follow my own advice, which is having like 80-90% of my money in very boring, like those big sort of total world style, not necessarily that one, but like lots in that. So the money I have in my interests is relatively small. So so firstly, it doesn't stress me out. Secondly, I believe in holding. So I go... Cool. Because one of the great things about companies, and we all know this because often we work in them, is that they innovate, they change, they adapt, and they figure out how to be profitable.
Yeah.
So even if in the short term trends change, I have every faith that they will figure out. And it's not one company, like it's like a bunch of them that so like you can kind of go, I'm pretty sure that that's still going to be a thing. But also because it's such a small fraction, I'm like, sometimes you lose. Like sometimes you do lose. But again, the worst case scenario, and I've done this before, we all do it, is you sell because you're like, oh, well, that's that. And then something changes and it rockets up and you go.
And you're like, oh, whoops. I sold it. And I'm really keen to know, what would your one big tip be for first-time investors if they've listened to this whole podcast?
Thank you for listening.
What's your tip? Yeah, thank you.
I would say just start. And I think, like we talk about this a lot at Powrsuit, power and influence are held in too few hands at the moment. And when you put yourself in a position that you do not participate, when you have your money sitting in a bank account or you spend it all, you are not putting yourself in a position, A, that you can take control of your own life, and B, that you can build up that power and influence that we should all actually have. The only way you can get started investing is to get started investing. Like that's literally it. So start small, make it really easy on yourself, try a little things, expect to make mistakes, expect to have a few failures, do not be embarrassed about it. Even Warren Buffett, who is like the investing god, like everyone loves him, he openly admits that he doesn't get it all right. And you actually look at a lot of their decisions, you can look at news articles, no one's going to get it right. So just start. And the great thing about investing is your knowledge grows as the amount of money you invest grows. So you learn some of those really stupid lessons at the start, and then as you grow, you end up making fewer and fewer of them. So you can just do it.
And it doesn't matter what age you are, just start.
Whereas if you, we know the stats. I don't know if you've heard this before. Lotto winners tend to go bankrupt. Did you know that?
No.
Because if you don't...
I feel like actually maybe I have read a story about this.
Because if you don't learn how to manage your money on the way up, you won't know how to manage it when you've got it. So the longer you leave it, the more you wait for the perfect time, the more likely you are to set yourself up to fail at that time. So start small, start now, talk to your friends, and you obviously are going to do it straight after this, aren't you?
Yeah, of course, yeah. Well, I'd already gone on to one of the apps, and then I was like, there were so many different things that I was like, okay, what do I do? But I was like, it is so easy these days, so it's kind of like, no-brainer to not give it a go.
And you can pick one thing this month and then another thing next month. So, you don't have to get the perfect decision either.
Yeah. I think that's what put me off for so long is, I just wouldn't know which companies. And then you do see people online and influencers in this space talk about what they're doing. They look like they're doing so great. And you're like, oh, well, I'm not like them, so I won't be able to do that. And it's like, no, you can. You just got to start and, pick what you're passionate about, like what you were saying, which I think is really cool. I've never thought of it like that.
I think that's actually a really good thing to finish on is firstly, don't follow other people. Because people will talk up. Influencers' job is to make themselves look great so that you want to follow them. So they will be talking stuff up. You don't need to do that. And secondly, and this is something that our brains don't really understand a lot of the time, investing isn't a zero-sum game. You can have totally different investments than me and we can both do equally as well. So you actually don't need to worry about what other people do. You have your own secret source of the knowledge you have, your interests, your whatever it is that you can invest in. And even if, for example, your investments don't do as well as mine, your $100 could turn into $150 and mine's to $152. Have you really lost? You actually, it
changes
doesn't
so
matter.
Quickly. So,
And it's not about picking the best. It's about picking one that you think is going to be solid, that you feel comfortable investing in. There's no right answer. And I think once you realize that, it kind of takes that weight off, which thing? Yeah. It's this thing. This is the right answer for me now.
Yeah, you've got to do what works for you rather than, copying what you're seeing other people doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you so much for today. I feel like I've learned a lot. I feel like I knew probably the most about shares than I did all the other investment types, but after this I feel way better about it. I think it's just, you're great at simplifying some of the terminology and not freaking yourself out about it. That's the thing. It's we get in our head that it's too big and fancy for us, but it's actually it doesn't have to be.
I will believe you when you tell me that you've bought shares.
I will update you when I've got some shares. I'll be like, look what I've done. Before we wrap up, could you just tell our listeners if they listen to this and they loved your vibe and they want to know more about you, where can they learn about you?
2 places. LinkedIn, very easy these days. But also come join us at Powrsuit. Powrsuit is just this very cool community of fabulous women taking control of their careers, learning great professional development skills step by step. So powrsuit.com, without the E, POWRsuit.com. You'll be able to invest in us through a share market at some point when we list on the New York Stock Exchange or something.
I'll be straight in there.
But come and join us, subscribe to our newsletter, follow us on LinkedIn, get in touch. I clearly love talking about investing and I just believe that more of us should start doing it. So always very happy to point people to different resources, other podcasts, whatever it is, or just be your cheer squad if, you are starting and you're not quite sure what to do next. That's what we all need to do to keep each other taking that next step.
Yeah, me and my flatmate are like that now. She'll come and be like, my managed fund, I got $12. I was like, yes, get it, girl. Because you talked a little bit about resources. Do you have your favourites that you would send people to?
Yeah, I love The Curve. I love Friends That Invest. Is it Friends That Invest now? She was Girls That Invest, but had to rebrand because of an international copyright or trademark.
Oh, man.
Those two things, they're great. I'm trying to think. There's a whole bunch. There's I am also a huge fan of FIRE, the Financial Independence Retire Early. So that's Mr. Money Mustache is one of the big movers there. There's a bunch of different investing clubs and things online. But those are probably my go-to. And they kind of all talk in this plain English language and break things down and have subscribe to some newsletters and you'll start to see they talk about it in ways that you're like, oh yeah, that's actually quite logical. It's not that different to what I normally do.
Yeah, awesome. And just start. Totally. Thanks, Nat. It was so great having you on.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for listening. If you want to find out more about us, head to our website, www.fma.govt.nz, and we'll see you guys next time. The content of this podcast is of a general nature and is not financial advice. The thoughts and opinions of guest speakers are not those of the FMA. The FMA recommends that our audience seek advice in respect to investing from a regulated financial advisor. The FMA does not accept any responsibility for loss that any person may suffer from following it.